It pains me to think that I was born into a world, into a culture that does not respect or value men at all. It's even more overt in the, as it's called in America, the black community, the African American community. A lot of my friends that I know, that I've grown up with, that are very close to me, also grew up in the same types of situations, living in homes that were pretty much ran by their mother, which is fine. But it's interesting to me that I think it's unique amongst, I don't want to say our people, but it's very common within the black community. I'm just using this expression for the sake of context, that it's perfectly okay to be a single mom. It's perfectly okay to do it all by yourself. It's perfectly okay to struggle. And in the end, these struggles, these obstacles, these are somehow, I guess, hallmarks of a person's character that are indicative of their strength, of their fortitude, of their steadfastness, whatever expression or term you want to, coin. But I came across the article by Essence, and I was curious to see what they had to say, and I wanted to also hear what Nia Long had to say about her situation. And it was very disheartening, to be honest, because the whole article was basically framed around revering her for her courage, for her strength, for her ability to be responsible and take care of, these children, which to me seems pretty straightforward and pretty ordinary. This is not anything that's extraordinary. This is not anything that's really impressive. If you have children, I mean, you would want to do the best by them. And I think that's where I see a problem, is that if you are, if you're having children, which is a very, very expensive expenditure, I don't even want to say it's an investment. If you're having children that by yourself, it's going to be that much more of a burden for you, not even financially, but emotionally, mentally, physically, what have you. And I think a lot of times people like to always bring up their success and use that as sort of a qualifier for why they are a candidate or a good representation of a single mom, because they have money, which is so far from reality. At any rate, I wanted to share some quotations from the article, and these basically corroborate my sentiment, and I'm just going to give some commentary after I read the quotes from the article. So at the beginning of the article, it began by saying, and I quote, repping hard for us 40-something-year-old moms who stay fit, fly, and blessed with the ability to be good moms. So just to unpack that quote, it's problematic on a couple of levels. The first one being, it says, stay fit, fly, and blessed. So blessed basically means that you didn't really do anything of your own volition, of your own discipline, of your own research to be a good mom. You were simply just endowed by the heavens with this ability to bring forth and to raise kids. That right there, I think, is it's delusional. Let's not even mince words. It's delusional. And the fact that she's also alluding to how she looks and how she stays in shape and how she's fly, which is a colloquialism amongst African Americans, which means basically just, you look a certain way, you're dressed very nice, you have a nice car, your clothes match, you have name brand shoes, whatever the case may be. And I like how they ended it though, because it's so revealing as to how they think, and how there's no regard whatever for the child. It's all about them. But it says, I was blessed with the ability to be a good mom. To me, when I hear the word good mom, those two words together in a sentence, it screams lackluster, it screams average. It doesn't really say anything or give me an idea of someone who's really serious about the decision that they've made in producing another life and bringing that life to fruition to basically be a slave in today's world. Moving on, quote, I'm in my 40s, post-baby, and thinner than I've ever been in years. The last step will be letting my hair go natural. That's when you'll know I'm free. So, without me really even having to point out anything, she's admitting that even in spite of her having two bundles of her own doing, or her own biology's doing, she considered herself, or she still considers herself, in bondage, because she said, once I let my hair go natural, then you'll know I'm free. So she's saying, I haven't let my hair go natural yet, but when I do, I will be free. Therefore, currently I am still in bondage. So she's readily admitting that she's a slave, and she has two boys. So I guess by extension, they are also slaves. So she's admitting this here. I don't know if she was aware that that's what she was saying, but that's what she said. And in the black community, when they say letting one's hair go natural, that means that you basically don't have any sort of, your hair is devoid of chemicals, it's devoid of someone else's hair, whether it be artificial or otherwise. You're basically just walking out in public as you were born. Yeah, silly, right? But she says that's when you'll know I'm free. So again, it's all about her. This is when you will know that I am free. But there should be no statements when you're a single mom and you have two boys. There should be no I statements like that. It should be we. Like, you should always think in terms of we, because you're no longer just an entity in and of yourself. You've generated two copies of yourself, two genetic copies. I think you should also include them in your statement. So I thought that was pretty troubling, because again, she's admitting that she's in bondage. Moving on, quote, marriage is not a priority for me. It's not where we are as a family. I just want to stress that I actually agree. Marriage, I think, is not the end all be all when it comes to how people interact. But the statement stating that marriage is not a priority, but having two boys to men that you have no commitment to, whatever, I think that can be a problem. It just shows the lack of prioritization and another instance of a profound egotistical, selfish way of bringing forth children. And I don't think it's warranted. That's just my opinion. Not saying she's a good or a bad person. I'm just merely reading the quotes and giving my thoughts. The next quote goes on to, she describes her, quote, emotional maturity. which is, I thought, was a very interesting phrase. And I think it brings a lot of questions. It raises many questions. What is emotional maturity? How do you know when you've reached emotional maturity? If you've reached it, that means that you can no longer go any further. So you basically, for lack of a better expression, I guess you've capped out. You can go no further. So that means you've kind of stifled yourself, because you're not even going to be open to any other information. You know it all. I'm mature. I know everything there is to know about my emotional health. I thought that was interesting. But again, it's like a very self-reinforcing, sort of a hubris. I'm I'm proud. I don't know where this comes from. It's just an innate sense of self-worth that I can't locate a source of where they get it from. I guess it is basically from their ability to be able to bring forth children into the world. I guess I can see why that would have a certain, value attached to it. But I think the ability in and of itself has nothing to do with Nia per se. It's merely just her body doing what it was made to do, which was to reproduce. Not saying that's its only purpose, but that's what it's there to do. And I don't think that we should take credit for something that our body does naturally. Just because your body is able to reproduce and generate more copies of a human organism doesn't mean that you should do it. You should basically use your brain as a filter to discern whether or not this is a good thing to do. Okay, your brain, I would say, supersedes or has, the ultimate deciding factor in whatever we do. I wasn't always sure. She goes on to say, Masai's dad, I guess is her son, Masai's dad and I have had the most challenging times, and I wasn't always sure we wouldn't end up like my mom and dad. We've arrived at a place where he's my friend, finally. So she's saying that she's already reproduced with this guy. She's already had his child, his seed, this bundle. But she's telling you that she wasn't even friends with him. They were essentially enemies or complete strangers before she had the child with him, because she says herself, we've arrived at a place where he's my friend, finally. So he wasn't your friend when he was granted access to reproduce with you. And I want to stress the fact that it is, with great power comes great responsibility. If you want to endow yourself with a special value because you have an inherent ability to reproduce, then with that comes great responsibility, and you should wield that power sparingly, I would say. So if you're making decisions with someone who isn't your friend, that to me, that seems very very troubling, very, very troubling. And yeah, it's just crazy, because I just see this so often. It's all of my friends have experienced the same thing, the same dynamic. Apologize for the noise. Wow. She goes on to say, being a good mother, the author is basically applauding her for her being a good mother. And I always hear this whenever there's any sort of criticism thrust upon women in general for doing the things they do, or being lackluster moms, or whatever the case may be. It's always somebody else that's not even in the family who's opinionated about or expressing their opinion about how good of a mom she is. And I guess it bothers me, because if someone were to say that my mom was a good mom, not to say that she was a terrible mom, but I would say, well, how would you know? You weren't there. She didn't raise you. So how can you just have a blanket statement for someone that you don't even know? And you're not even considering the child. That's the person who decides who is a good parent. And that's what society doesn't value children and how they feel. It only values the woman. Because if we did value children, we would ask the children what they thought and what they had to say, and we wouldn't dismiss what they had to say by merely reiterating that, oh, well, she was a good mom. No, you would listen to the child, because that's the ultimate arbiter in whether or not this person was a good parent. Who else would be able to make that sort of judgment? Yes, judgment. But the child that's being raised by the parent. It's a symbiotic relationship. So yeah, there you have it. It's just so troubling, and I find myself feeling so despondent, because this is something that's going to continue to be perpetuated, because it's been, the zeitgeist is that it's okay. It's a good thing to do this. It doesn't matter. And it's all about fulfilling the woman's wants and her desires, not the child's. But at any rate, it also goes on to say she's passionate about her role as a mom. And to me, that was also very indicative of how serious they take the responsibility. It's not a role. This isn't something that you go into a room with a script and you read over it with the other actors and you say your lines back and forth. But that's kind of what it is. As an analogy, it's analogous to people who go in a room, they say their lines back and forth and they rehearse it, and then they go out and they say it. But this is something that you do 24/7 for the rest of your life. It doesn't stop once your offspring is 18 years old. It doesn't stop. This is a lifelong commitment. It's not something that you jump in and out of as an actor or an actress. It's not a role. This is something serious. This person depends on you. Every decision that you make is shaping their reality, is shaping their brain, shaping their psychology. And all these people can think about is themselves. She also goes on to say how and I think she was basically overreaching, she's insecure about her decision that she's made to have two boys. I couldn't confirm if the boys have the same father. But the article, it reeked of her insecurity that she had these two boys, because she was saying how she chose to be single, to be a single mom. And then she also goes on to say she was ready to be a single mom, but she wasn't ready to be committed to either of the fathers. She wasn't ready to be married to them. But what's more of a commitment, being married or having two lives that depend on you forever? I agree, marriage doesn't last forever. People come and go, people change. But if you know that, to me, it just seems that having the kids would definitely be a much greater commitment. And if you're not willing to make the other because it's too big of a commitment, well, why on earth did you make the other twice over, twofold? Anyway, these are my thoughts. Let me know what you think.